Really, we don't have any I&I problem. We just need to get Ed to cut back on his water.
Yeah, my wife told me that she's gonna have me order the next water filter. She's just lucky I don't have Jay.
Really, we don't have any I&I problem. We just need to get Ed to cut back on his water.
Yeah, my wife told me that she's gonna have me order the next water filter. She's just lucky I don't have Jay.
Really, we don't have any I&I problem. We just need to get Ed to cut back on his water.
Yeah, my wife told me that she's gonna have me order the next water filter. She's just lucky I don't have Jay.
Really, we don't have any I&I. Who has YouTube on? Ed to cut back on his
I
water.
think Barbara has it on.
She's gonna have me order the next water filter.
We're looping.
Lucky I don't have Jay. Really, we don't have any I&I. Who has YouTube on? Ed to cut back on his
I
water.
think Barbara has it on.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so this is a meeting of the Poolesville Town Commissioners. It's a special meeting where we're coming together to talk about a specific agenda item from last time. And today is, what is today? May 24th, 2021. It's 5:04. And those present are myself, Mr. Ed Reed, Mr. Martin Radigan, our attorney Jay Gullo, our acting town manager Bobby Evans, and hopefully the other commissioners will be joining us shortly. But we did want to go through this quickly and as efficiently as possible and not take up everyone's time too much, even though this is a really important issue that we tentatively gave direction to our staff to move forward on. Basically, we're talking about the Poolesville Summer Youth Camp. And at our last business meeting, we gave direction to staff to move forward. But then I had a meeting with Bobby and Wade and Kathy, and a lot of questions came up that, for which neither Bobby nor myself could just answer unilaterally. So that was the reason for this special session. So I thought maybe, Bobby, you could start out giving some general information about the camp, maybe for folks who are new to it, and then give us your report or your recommendations.
Okay, it's a summer camp, would start June 21st, go through August, 7 weeks. Right now, we have 8 counselors signed up. We need 11. 3 are returning, 5 are new. We have no interest for a director or an assistant director. We haven't received anything from anybody. The camp is supposed to start in 27 days.
Wow.
So I don't know. We can't find really anything out. Rockville, they're having one, but it has to be in group of 10s. It's also $350 a week. If somebody gets COVID, that group can't come back. We couldn't find anything for Rockville. Gaithersburg is doing on a week to week basis. You have to sign up for a week.
Bobby, who is charging $350 a week?
City of Rockville for 2 weeks.
$350 for 2 weeks.
Yep. Right, and Montgomery County's minimum wage went up to $14 an hour starting July 1st instead of $13.25.
Hey, Bobby, is the Stevens Park camp limited to residents of Poolesville, or is it anybody that wants to sign up?
It has been for anybody. So we thought about having a resident price and a non-resident price.
Yeah, I like that idea.
But if we don't have employees.
Right.
So what is the pricing that you're looking at now, Bobby?
I would say at least 150 for residents, 200 for non-residents.
That's for
That makes it out to 61 cents an hour per child.
And Bobby, that's for the whole summer, right? The whole
Right.
duration of the program.
7 weeks, yes.
7 weeks. That still sounds like an incredibly inexpensive price point, but
I agree.
But at least it's going in the right direction, in my opinion. You know, it's not $70 for 7 weeks or whatever it was previously was just awfully inexpensive.
Well, what
And just-
happens if someone gets COVID?
Go
Do we
ahead.
shut down the whole camp?
Say again, please.
If somebody gets COVID?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. That's something that we may not even have to get to if we can't find someone to run the camp. And just to be clear for anybody watching, the price increase that we're talking about, this is still a heavily subsidized camp, even at the prices that you're recommending, Bobby. If I'm understanding correctly, we'd still be subsidizing this to some extent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think the question you're asking about, what do we do if a student gets COVID? Like, how much of the camp do we shut down? Do we shut any of it down? I think is something off the top of my head. I would think that the director of the camp would have to decide, working with you, Bobby. But you know, it seems like we're kind of at a standstill if we can't even find anybody to be director.
Right. We have nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thinking, hey, how you doing, Jeff? Welcome.
Oh, hi, Ed.
Yeah, my thinking is that if we were to lay out just a timetable to say what would be, if we were to consider moving forward, is that if we don't have a viable director by a certain point of time, then that's when we pull the plug. 'Cause I think you got to have ample time for planning, and so I'm looking at two different things. On one hand, let's say we have a viable director who can get into the position, has time to start planning and set up those scenarios that are going to be new because it's a new situation. Then we could look at what are those other questions that need to be answered to move forward. And then, like I said, on the other hand, it becomes a moot point if we don't have a director.
Right.
You know, and then let's say if we do have a director, and we talk about that COVID, what kind of policy would be put in place, or what kind of practice would be put in place if a person has COVID. I think there's a lot of what ifs, because you have to look at the contact tracing, you have to look at are the kids in a camp going to be working together in pods, or will they really be mixing and mingling throughout the camp? And I know that the camp is outdoors, but kids could be doing activities together. They could do all kinds of like sports, all kinds of things.
Well, yeah, this has been going on since March 19th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when we looked at it in March, we weren't going to move forward. I think the challenge is we had to come back and look at it, because when the restrictions were lifted the way they're lifted, then the same things that were the reasons that we said no, are those reasons still there? And if those reasons aren't there, then it's prudent upon us to at least have the discussion. Do we do that?
Yeah, I think we're sort of at the same place that we've always been at, which is that, you know, at least it seems like at the moment we're saying yes, but we have basically these two contingencies. One is we need to find a director and an assistant director by June 7th. Is that correct?
At least.
Is that at the latest?
Well, we said till May 28th, and that's Friday.
So, Bobby, if as acting town manager, you're recommending that if we can't find anybody by May 28th, it sounds like, I mean, you need that lead time to organize this camp and to give a director and an assistant director time to pull it all together. It sounds like if we don't even get any resumes by that date, you know, maybe we should, you know, as frustrating as it is, maybe we should just decide that this year it's not viable. I mean, without a director, our hands are kind of tied.
And the other contingency I think that we have is we don't really have any real sense of how many families are going to take advantage of the camp at this point. So, you know, at the very least, we can choose a minimum number of campers registered again, by a certain date in order to hold the camp.
I think the residents.
Is anybody
need to have
registered
yes or
now?
no.
We haven't set up registration yet.
Oh,
We don't have a
Well-
director yet.
You guys,
okay,
I
okay.
think we can't do a staggered approach like that. It's got to be, we're either having it or we're not having it. Because if we have to hire a director, then we can't wait to let them know if they're directing, depending on how many kids come into the camp. So it's either yes or no.
I agree.
I think it's in Jeff Eck's opinion. I think at this point, since there are so many unknowns, unfortunately, I think the answer is just going to be no.
I think so too. I think we're too far behind the curve.
Bobby, is that your recommendation?
Yes, it is for this year.
Okay.
But I think it's not only because we don't know how many kids and we don't have a director, which are two, of course, enormous items. But COVID is not gone, right? So I know Montgomery County is opening up, and there's a lot of folks who are happy, well, including myself, of course. But there's this whole issue about how do we protect the kids from the kids who are not vaccinated? We cannot require them to be vaccinated. There's just a mountain of ifs that we don't have answers to.
All right. So it sounds like we have our decision. Does anybody disagree?
I mean, I guess I'm still of the opinion of waiting until whatever our drop dead date is to see if we can get some staff. But if tonight is the drop dead date, then maybe it is. But
Well, then what's the 28th? Is that this Friday?
That's Friday, but we
Yeah.
haven't had anybody show any interest, and I only have 3 returning counselors.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah,
5 are new.
I think it's a done deal. Yeah, I don't know if we have to vote on this or just what, but I think it's not going to happen this year. It's just unfortunate, but it just isn't.
I think a lot of the parents have already made other arrangements anyway.
Yeah, I suspect they have.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really wish there was a way we could make it happen, but it doesn't. I don't see a good path forward. So I don't know. Do we need to vote on this, Jay?
I think it'd make it clarify that
Yeah,
way
I
you
agree.
all know and take lead. So yeah, motion and a vote would be great.
Okay.
Is this a meeting that's on YouTube?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
which
Oh,
is
good. Okay. Because
what is your feeling?
yeah, folks, I think they deserve to hear the conversation. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Ed, what is your feeling?
I guess I'm listening to both of it, and I know on one hand, if we said that if we had a drop deadline date, which was for the 28th, then perhaps as we make our decision, if we were moving forward, and let's say we don't have a director by the 28th, then we don't move forward. All right. I do think there's some other considerations that I don't think we've ironed out all of the way. I think Jeff brings up a good point where while people are excited, I'm excited that we're lifting up some things, but COVID's still here. I know I just think about when I look in the school system, and anybody could go and read the letters that have gone out from the various schools of there's a staff or a student at the particular school who's had COVID, and then that student has to be away for 14. What do you call it? The kid has to quarantine for 14 days. And so I'm just thinking about, you got two, I guess I'm thinking, are the risk worth the reward? All right. And that's where I'm kind of on the fence. Where I'm not on the fence, if we don't have a person by the 28th, then we don't move forward. But I'm just playing it out a little further. If we had somebody by the 28th, going back, looking at the risks, because the question that was asked tonight, what happens if a student or if a staff has COVID, then what happens next? Or let's say even if a director has COVID, then what happens to the whole program? And so it is not like we have a lot of people in the pipeline who could step up and become that director and meet all the requirements that are necessary to run the program. So
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards saying that it's probably, as much as I would really love to see it happen, but
Oh, we
you
all
know,
would, yeah.
yeah, but from a practical standpoint, and because we can't mandate kids being vaccinated, and then they're outside, there's no mask, and just for me working with kids, I think it's very difficult to regulate kids appropriately social distancing from one another. So
Yeah, I mean, my
yeah.
feeling is if we are doing it, we would have to implement some COVID protocols. I mean, I think we would certainly need to have kids masked at the very least.
And I think there'll be a lot of pushback because you'll have, if you look at even like with the sports right now, if you're outside, you don't playing sports, you don't necessarily have to have your mask on.
Right.
Right. And so we should not be out of alignment with what the county is saying in terms of COVID protocol. So then the real question comes up, even if we're in alignment with the county's guidelines, what happens if a kid and underneath our supervision in our camp has that? Then how do you contact trace? And is all of the downsides worth it, especially at 61 cents an hour?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think our priority should be whether or not we're in alignment with other agencies or other government entities. Our priority should be the health and safety of our town members.
Mm-hmm.
That should go above everything. Honestly, that's why I had suggested that on our job announcement that we include a requirement for the staff to be vaccinated. Now, Jay has hastened against that, but I'm worried about not making this a requirement. I mean, it sounds like we're probably going to be making the decision to not move forward with it anyway. But I mean, my way of thinking, if we're going to do this, we definitely need to have a lot of things in place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we don't have all those things in place at all. And I was going to suggest that if we were going to move forward, but my recommendation is that we do not. However, if we were going to move forward, that we make whatever applicants that have had a vaccination as a priority over any applicants that may not have had a vaccination.
We can't
Did you all read my
ask.
memo that I sent you today?
I did.
Yes.
I did.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions about it.
Well, this isn't probably the forum to talk about it, but doing what, I mean, we can, it's uncomfortable with you, but, there are things in there that you just can't, what you're suggesting, you can't do. I mean, you certainly can do it, but you're opening yourself up to tremendous liability in doing that, prioritizing vaccinated people versus unvaccinated people. And I mean, it is, and the rationale for that is if somebody says I'm not vaccinated and you got to say why, and they're going to say for religious reasons. And then we're going to say, okay, well, we're going to pick the guy that is vaccinated. You've just discriminated against based on religious reasons. That could happen. I mean, there's a lot of other scenarios that could happen. We're more under scrutiny because we're a government. We obviously have deep pockets, and we also have an obligation to uphold all those things I put in my memo, like the HIPAA laws, the ADA laws, and the privacy laws. And there are big concerns about requiring employees to have vaccinations. That was what my memo was all about. And you cannot just pick a certain sect of employees and say you have to do it. You have to have a nexus for that, and you have to examine the workforce. So, I mean, that's the highlight of the whole situation. And, as I told you, you're opening Pandora's box, and you might have other operational issues, but the question would be, you want the kids to feel safe, you want the parents to feel safe, you want the staff to feel safe. These are the same questions and issues that school systems are grappling with, and they're not in a position to resolve it. Why would we be in a position to resolve it any better at this point?
It was a good informative memo, Jay. I don't know that we need to have this conversation necessarily though, because it sounds like, it's a moot point if we don't I mean, if we don't have a director and if we don't get a director by the 28th, or, I don't know if we're going to decide now or decide the 28th, but I don't think we need to decide any kind of vaccine kind of things at this point. Because,
Well, if we do have that discussion, let's save it for a 7 p.m. meeting so that everybody that knows we're meeting can turn in on it, listen to us talk about it. I think Martin's right. We just call this one. It's it either sounds like to me, so we don't have to keep talking about it, is we either cancel camp today or we cancel camp on the 28th
Friday.
if we don't have a director applicant ready to go.
Yeah.
It's either one. And I'm in favor of canceling it today.
I am
here's another
too.
question to your point, Jim, and then Bobby. This is directed to you, being the one who's making the decisions. So say you've got a couple people on the 28th that look like they're qualified. How long? And we're right up against the gun. How long do you need to do your due diligence, to do background checks, to do reference checks? I mean, that could be another week or two, and then
At least.
And then are you into the point at that point where it's just too late?
I think it's too late.
Okay.
There's too much that has to be done. We don't know about COVID. We wouldn't want to open the camp and have a kid get sick and spread it, or a staff member.
And then have to shut it down again, and then have to refund the money and go
Right.
through that whole process.
Yeah.
Contact tracing, we would still want to do that.
Yeah.
Quarantine, et cetera. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to consider, guys, and it's too bad that we're this far into the game. But it's not our fault that the COVID situations evolved to the point that at least we could even talk about it.
Right.
So,
And, Jim, and as I'm reflecting on the whole how we got to where we are right now, when we had already made a decision, I think we saw sparks of hope in the excitement that, hey, maybe we could pull this off and have a camp. It'll be great for the residents.
Yeah.
But when you really dig into the weeds, they're more the same challenges that we had looked at before. The remnants are still there. And while it's not as strict as it was before, there's still some real possibilities that we would be left dealing with. All right.
the reverb would possibility of some serious reverb would still be in place.
And I could tell you, I know just working in the school system, even with our summer programs, those who are teaching summer school, they're not mandated to have be vaccinated. And
I don't see how we can ever get into mandated vaccines. I think that's
that's
Jay said that's real. The school systems can't get it together on that.
I know I personally know people who, for religious reasons, or even just lack of faith in the system, are not going to get vaccinated.
There you go.
So, but
I guess I think we run into the liability issue if we don't require these things. I mean, like if we're talking about as a certain job requirement, dealing with a bunch of children who are not vaccinated, that's definitely a specific job requirement area.
I think the argument on the other end is if school systems aren't making you do it, how could a small town make you do it?
That's right.
And some of the age group is I was just gonna say some of the age group is not eligible for the vaccination yet.
Well, and again, this is a conversation that we would be having if we were actually going to have the camp. But
right.
I don't know that it's worth the conversation now.
Yeah, if we're talking about regular employees, so that's a 7 p.m. meeting discussion, and this is a 5 p.m. meeting discussion where people are still not even listening. So I think we just solve this one problem now, and then we move on to the next during regular meeting time.
Yep.
Well, it sounds like maybe someone is wanting to make a motion anyway, so maybe all of this is a moot point.
I could easily make a motion that the board decides that this is not the year that we're holding summer camp, and that we will regroup for next year's camp starting tomorrow.
I just wanted to say that, just put this bug in everyone's ear. I wonder if this should affect our thoughts about any events for this summer too.
I personally think that's kind of a separate matter.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
have that, it's a whole nother discussion, not tonight,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
just something to
I'm
think
gonna, s-
about.
So
I'm
I
gonna
say,
second Kim's motion.
Jim, were you making was that a motion, Jim, you made?
That was
or
a motion. That was as firm a motion as you'll hear from me tonight.
Okay. So Jim's made a motion.
And I think Jeff just seconded it.
All right.
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Sadly.
Yeah.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? I think we all said aye. Thank you. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
Carrie, it's a good point about the events, you know, that's something we need to start thinking about, but I think that's a whole different discussion and.
It is.
And, you know,
And same thing about the subsidy too, but we need to like make a note that goes on the agenda for probably sometime in November, December, where we sort that out. And you know, if people want to raise the costs for it, then that's something we talk about.
yeah.
Great.
Because the serious parents start looking at that for activities at Christmas time.
Oh.
We should have our costs lined up in a solid game plan for as best we can,
All right.
including a director, or a couple of director candidates.
So anybody got anything else or should I make the next motion?
No, I think
Does
that's
Bo-
it.
Does Bobby have to do anything now, like take away the advertisement or anything?
We'll put an announcement on Facebook tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Bobby, and I guess if you don't mind, and guys, I hope you don't mind me saying something on our behalf. But Bobby, if you don't mind just thinking the 9 people who did say they would do it as camp counselors, and we really appreciate their willingness to serve in the camp. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to move forward. But as the commissioners really appreciate them stepping up to help out.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
Yeah. It's a dagger, but I think it is the right thing to do, and we especially don't want to jeopardize even just one kid. Is not worth jeopardizing even just one kid getting sick.
Hopefully we'll be in a different place next year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And you know, just so we're clear, like, you know, I think we all had our reasons for voting for this, but you know, it's even before we worry about kids getting sick, which is obviously very, very important. Like that's even a point that we can't even get to because we don't have a director. So
Yeah. It's an operation piece.
yeah. So anyway, I make a motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
All those in favor?